successful space launch, and then an unsuccessful one with the Challenger explosion. And we talked about how everything has to be just right for spacecraft to go into space successfully. So today, you're going to be able to design your own spacecraft to go to a certain celestial body in space. Okay? So I'm going to give each table a little sheet, and at the top it's going to have a planet or maybe a moon, and this is where your spacecraft is going to go, where it's going to travel to. We're going to talk about some of the different features of each one of these planets or celestial bodies and why they're important when you're designing spacecraft to go there. Okay? So you can kind of look over this together with your table mate. And okay, I'll get you one. Yeah, learn a lot of interesting facts on there. Alright, so you can see on your paper you've got several little headings that are bolded. You've got temperature, atmosphere, moon, location, surface, and then you've got some quick facts down at the bottom. Okay, so we're going to talk about atmosphere first and why atmosphere is important when you're designing a spacecraft. Okay, so look at the atmosphere for your planet or your moon, and raise your hand if your planet has a thicker atmosphere than Earth. Look under atmosphere. Is your atmosphere thicker than Earth? Raise your hand. Okay. Alright, so what's your planet? You guys have Venus. What's your planet? Saturn. What's yours? Neptune. What's yours? Jupiter. Good. So those are all planets where the atmosphere, the air, and the different things in the air around the planet is very thick. So you're going to try to reduce the amount of drag or air resistance for your spacecraft to be able to fly, either orbit around your planet or land on your planet, okay? Because a thicker atmosphere is going to create more drag and more air resistance. Right? Raise your hand if your planet has a thinner atmosphere than Earth. Thinner. Okay, what's your planet? Mercury. The moon. You don't have an atmosphere, right? What do you guys have? Mars. And Mercury. Okay, so a thinner atmosphere, you're going to have to create more drag. So you're going to have to design your spacecraft to either have a parachute or something to slow it down so that when it tries to land, it's not going to crash. Okay, so atmosphere is important to know if you need to increase drag for your spacecraft or decrease drag. Okay, so that's something you're going to have to keep in mind today. Right? Yes. Yours says no atmosphere, so that would be a thinner atmosphere than Earth. Okay. All right, the next thing we're going to talk about is location. Okay, so you have inner planets and you have outer planets. Your inner planets are Mercury, Venus, Earth, and Mars. They're the planets that are closest to the sun, okay? So those are going to be planets that are going to be easier to get to from Earth because they're closer to Earth, even though it's going to still take a really, really, really long time to get there because the distances in space are so big. So your outer planets are going to be your gassy planets, made mostly of gas, like Neptune, Saturn, Jupiter, and Uranus. It's going to take longer to get there. So why do you think that would be important for designing your spacecraft? If it's going to take a long time to get there or a short amount of time to get there? Why would that be important? What do you think?
Because you might want to create a spacecraft that
Okay. 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 Anybody else have any thoughts on that? What about fuel? Is that going to be important? Like if I'm going from here to Birmingham, I'm going to need more gas than if I'm going from here to Pizza Hut, right? Okay. So location is important to know how much fuel you'll need. Okay. We're going to look at surface of the earth first. Raise your hand. Look under surface on your sheet. Raise your hand if you have a rocky planet. A rocky planet. So you're probably an inner planet, probably Mercury, Venus, Earth, or Mars. Those are the rocky planets usually. Okay? Hands down. Raise your hand if you've got a gassy planet. Made up of mostly gas. Okay, so you're probably an outer planet. Saturn, Jupiter, Uranus. Pluto is mostly gassy. Some of them say gassy with a rocky core. But if gaseous is listed first, then you're mostly made up of gas. Okay? Why would that be important for designing your spacecraft? If the planet's made up of gas or of rock and dirt? Aiden?
Because if it's all gas, then you won't be able to land.
Exactly. So if you've got one of those outer planets that's made mostly of gas, you're going to have to design a spacecraft that can orbit your planet because you're not going to be able to land. So you're looking at maybe satellites or probes or things like that that are going to be unmanned and controlled remotely from NASA. But if you've got a rocky planet, you could do, really the options, you could do any of them. You could do a space shuttle because you could actually put somebody onto your planet. It's never been done before, but hey, the future is now, so we're dreaming. You could do a rover like that was sent to Mars, the Curiosity, or you could do a satellite or a probe that just orbits around your planet. Okay, so you've got more options. So the surface is important to see, can you land your spacecraft? Can't land if you're on a rocky planet. A gassy planet. All right, look at temperature. Look at the temperature of your planet. All right. So the planets that are closer to the sun, of course, are going to be hotter. So your hotter planets are going to be Mercury and Venus. Earth, if it wasn't for the slight tilt that the Earth is at, then we wouldn't be able to live here. Okay, because we're the third closest planet to the sun, but because we're not directly aiming at the sun, we're tilted this way. It's also why we have seasons. That's why there's life here and not on any other planets that we know of. Okay, so the hot planets are going to be Mercury and Venus because they're closer, and then your colder planets are going to be your outer planets, anything that's further away from the sun. Saturn, Jupiter, Mars, Uranus, and Neptune. Okay, so think about temperature, designing a spacecraft. Why is temperature important? Alea?
Temperature doesn't say as long as how close you are to the sun and how far away you are to the sun.
Okay. Aiden?
Did you know that the planet Uranus is actually upside down?
I did. I had heard that. That's interesting, isn't it?
The engine could overheat and the thing is...
Good. So if you're going to Mercury or to Venus, you're going to have to design your spacecraft so that it doesn't blow up from getting too hot, right? And if you're going to one of the outer planets, then you're going to have to design your spacecraft so that it doesn't freeze in those really, really, really cold temperatures. Okay, so that's why temperature is important. All right, last one is size. Okay, So if you look at size of your planet, it probably has diameter, the size of your planet in diameter. Like Venus is 75,000 miles in diameter. Who's got Jupiter? Jupiter, what does yours say on size? Okay, so yours is 89,000 miles in diameter. So 89,000 miles in diameter compared to 7,500 miles in diameter. Which one's bigger? Okay, Jupiter is a lot bigger than Venus. Okay, think about it in terms of designing your spacecraft. Why would that be important? This one's a little harder. Mm-hmm. Yeah? Well, it really has more to do with how long is it going to take to explore that planet. Is it going to take longer to explore Venus or Jupiter? Is it going to take longer to explore Venus or Jupiter? Jupiter is bigger, okay? So that's why size is important. How long is it going to take to explore? Okay, so these are the 5 things that you're going to think about today as you're designing your spacecraft. Atmosphere of your planet, location, the surface, temperature, and the size, okay? All of those things are going to go into your design. So, what you're going to do, I'm going to give everybody one of these sheets on spacecraft design, so everybody has to do one of these, but you can work with your table mate on it because you have the same planet that you're going to. So I'm going to give you one of these. Go ahead and put your name on it. You will need a pencil. Talk loud because I'm listening, but I'm passing out at the same time. She wasn't in there? Okay, hang on. I'm coming back to you. What'd she say? Okay. I really think that this is going to be a regular thing. You might need to bring it up here just to leave with the nurse. And it's just a simple form that your mom has to fill out, okay? All right, so make sure your name is at the top. And your directions say, imagine a spacecraft that will travel on a mission to another celestial body in our solar system. So your celestial body is whatever is on your yellow sheet right here. Okay, so this group has it in it. Answer the questions below and then draw your spacecraft in the box. Label the parts of your design. Okay? So number 1, what is your destination? You can go ahead and fill that in. Number 1, it's whatever is at the top of your yellow sheet. Okay, number 2, check at least 3 celestial body features that you will plan for in your design. Okay, these are the 5 that we talked about. You just have to choose 3 of those. So you might want to talk with your table mate about which 3 you think are going to be important for where you're traveling. So if you think size of the planet, surface, and location are important, check those 3. Okay, number 3. Listen, because this is what everybody has questions on number 3. Why are these celestial body features important? Okay, I have that up here on the board. This is what we filled in together when we were talking about this. So let's say you chose temperature as one of your celestial body features that you're going to think about during your design. Why is temperature important? Alea.
Because if you're close to the sun, it might get too hot and explode, and if you're far from the sun, it might get too cold.
Right. So you have to write a sentence to say temperature is important because I have to design my spacecraft not to get too hot or cold. Does that make sense? You're giving me a sentence for why each one of those is important. So you should have 3 sentences on number 3 because you checked 3 celestial body features in number 2. You have to give me a sentence on each. It's on the board to help you. Okay? If you don't have enough room to write on number 3, you can turn the paper over and write it on the back. All right, number 4, will your spacecraft be manned or unmanned? What does that mean? Is there an astronaut on it or not? Okay? If you're designing a satellite or a probe, those are unmanned. Okay? So that's kind of what's on your mind to do. You're going to put unmanned on there. Now, if you have a space shuttle, that would probably be manned. There would probably be astronauts on there. Okay? A rover, more than likely, is going to be unmanned. And then number 5, and this is another one you can talk with your table mate about, what is the purpose of your mission? Okay? So maybe sometimes they're going into space to collect data. Sometimes they're going into space or sending a probe into space to get pictures. Sometimes they sent like the Curiosity rover to Mars to collect soil and dirt samples. Okay? So it depends on what kind of spacecraft you're designing as to what the mission is, and that's what you're writing on number 5. Okay? And then in the box, you're drawing your spacecraft, what you want it to look like, and then I do want it colored as well. So you're drawing and coloring in the box what your spacecraft looks like. Alright, and then when you're finished, make sure your name is on it, and you're going to turn it into my basket on my desk, because this is for a grade.